So hello and welcome to Steps to Maths, and today we're going to be looking in statistics, we're going to be looking at the median. So here we have a collection of data. So the first thing, before we even begin to look at the median, I want you to think about in statistics, something I want you to think about all the time, and that's there's two things to be aware of. And what you need to be aware of is, the question is, what information are you collecting? It's very important to keep in mind what the information represents, what the number 3 represents. What's this 3? What's it doing? What does it mean? Okay, so this particular example, I'm going to say that these values are the number of children in a household. So a person goes door to door or does a survey of some kind in some way and finds these points of data for a number of households. So like I said there, it's a number of households, so that there are two pieces of information here. Okay, so notice there are two pieces of information here. Firstly, we have the number of children. And secondly, the thing that we don't often think about is we also have the number of households from which this data was collected. Okay, so whenever you have a question, you're asked to find the median of these values, it's important generally to keep in mind what the data represents. So this data represents the number of children in households. So the first point tells us that there were 1 children in this household, there were 3 children in this household, there were 5 children in this household. Okay, and you'll notice there, if you look at all the numbers, you'll find out that there were 30 households that this data was measured from. So keep in mind two things. You're measuring, 1, the number of children, and in fact if you counted all these numbers up you get the total number of children in all of these households. But you're finding the number of children in each household, so you have the number of children and you have the number of households. And the reason why we're looking at that, I'll get to that in a minute. The second thing I want to look at, seeing as we're talking about statistics, I want to think about what the type of data that you have. Okay, so the number you collected there, or the number that was collected, was a number. So it's called a numerical data point. So each item of data that you collect is a data point, and if it's a number, we say it's a numerical data point. So usually, how do we get a number? We get a number by counting or measuring. When we're counting, our numerical data point will be discrete, which means it can only take on a certain number of values. If we're measuring, it's usually going to be continuous. Okay, which means it can take on an infinite, any number from an infinite set of options. There are exceptions. So like I said, continuous means the value is any from an infinite set. So the exception is when you're measuring from a finite set, in which case it'll be discrete again. What's that mean? Okay, so imagine you're counting the number of people in households. The only possible values are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So those are discrete values. When you're measuring, let's say for my example, you were measuring somebody's height, you could get 1.8 meters, 1.801 meters, 1.8015297 meters. That would be continuous. That's an infinite set of numbers it could be from. However, if you're measuring somebody's shoe size, the length of their foot would be a continuous measurement. Their shoe size can only be from a finite set, because shoes only come in certain values. So their shoe size would be discrete data. The length of their foot would be a continuous measurement. It's a little bit of something to think about when you're measuring or counting things. So sometimes it's interesting to know what type of data we're collecting, and we'll come back to that at some other point. For the moment, we know that if we get a number, it's called numerical, and because we're counting, it's definitely going to be discrete. Okay, so back to the 2 points of information. Why is it important to be aware of both? Okay. Why aware of both values? Okay. Well, the reason, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons is when we're measuring the average, we must always be able to say clearly, so that we understand exactly what we're doing. Say clearly what we mean. And we'll see that in just one moment. Okay, so let's have a look. How do we find the median? Step 1. So to find the median, this is the bit you need to know in order to answer the question. The other bits of information are super important to understand as you learn more and more about statistics. Okay, just remember we need both values, and you need to understand if your data is discrete or continuous. For the moment, we just want to find the median. So how do we do that? Step 1, we put all our data points in order. Step 2, pick a value for which half the data points are less than and half are more than. That's it. That's just all you have to do to find the median. So you put all your data points in order and you pick a value for which half of the data points are smaller than that and half of the data points are higher than that. And step 3, explain in English or your language of preference what this means. And at this point, you'll need to know what both values are. Okay, so let's go back to our data. Here's our list of data: 1, 3, 5, 7, 0, 1, 2, and so forth, all the way down to 2. We have 30 points of data which we collected from 30 households. Each point of data tells us the number of children in that household. Step 1, put all our data points in order. There they are in order. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and so on. Okay, all the way up to 7. Now we need to pick one for which half of the data points are smaller than and half the data points are larger. Because they are already in order, this is quite easy. We know there are 30 data points. So we want 15 smaller than something and 15 larger than something. This is going to be slightly unusual in this situation, but let's go. Okay, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. If I pick this point here, our median is 1. This point is 1. Normally it'd be halfway between whatever these two values is. Halfway between 1 and 1 is 1. So I'm going to pick some better values in a little while. But first of all, this is how we do this. This will come up more frequently in frequency tables. So the median is 1. Step 3. What exactly does this mean in English? This means that 15 households have 1 or fewer children in them, and 15 households have one or more children in them. That's what the median means. The median means that 50% of the households have, what's the median? One or fewer children, and 50% of the households have one or more children. So you've got to be able to say that in English. 50% of the households have one or fewer children, so you need to know that you're measuring from households, and you need to know that you are measuring children. Let's have another little look at a little example with a small number of data points to make this a little bit easier for you. Let's say you were given the data 3, 7, 9, 18, 20, 2, minus 5, 7. Step 1, put them in order. Minus 5. Tick it off so we know where we are. 2, 3, 7, 7, 9, 18, 20. Okay, how many numbers do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 values. What do the values represent? They represent the temperature on different days in Celsius. So our question, step 2. We know that there are 8 values, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Pick the halfway mark. I did not want this to happen, so I'm actually going to change one of the numbers here to 8. This is now going to be 8. My apologies for that. Okay, just changing the numbers quickly there. So I want 4 numbers here and 4 numbers here. These are in order, so we know that this is the halfway point. Let's pick halfway between 7 and 8. Halfway point between 7 and 8 is 7.5. Step 2, midpoint is 7.5 degrees. Okay, step 3, what have we found? We have found that the median is 7.5 degrees. So step 3, that means when we say in English that 50% of the days had a temperature less than 7.5 degrees, and 50% of the days had a temperature greater than 7.5 degrees. Okay, so this was a little bit long-winded. I wanted to introduce you to a number of different concepts. The method that you use to find the median is simple. You put your data points in order. You find the middle value, which sometimes might be the same as the actual value. Sometimes it's going to be halfway between 2 values. In this case, it's halfway between those 2 values. It's 7.5. Sometimes it'll be actually one of the values. That's fine too. So the median is 7.5 degrees. Step 3, explain in English what this means. 50% of the days had a temperature less than 7.5 degrees. Okay? This will come up occasionally. You want to say 50% of our data points are below the median. When we know what our data points are the temperature on a given day. We say 50% of our days are below, had a temperature less than the median. It's important to be able to think about this in English from time to time. Okay, so there you go. That's the steps. Step 1, put them in order. Step 2, pick the halfway point. Pretty easy. I talked a lot about it, but that's all you have to do really. Okay, so have a go at the questions and the best of luck.